So welcome, Andrea.
Hi.
And nice and brief. Andrea, before we came on here, you were speaking, we were having a little conversation and you're saying, oh, I can't wait for this to be over because, I'm not used to doing this stuff. And I get it because not everybody's, confident having these kind of conversations. However, you are doing some amazing stuff, and I absolutely couldn't go past you. You have got the Float, which is an incredible art space up in Lake Tyers in East Gippsland, and I do want to unpack that a little bit further into the interview. But let's just go back. No, let's just say hi first. Hi.
Sorry, I did say hi, and yes, you're right about my preamble is that I actually prefer to write than to speak, so bear with me. But yeah, I'm glad people are interested, and yeah, I've been having a ball here in East Gippsland for the last 23 years, so yeah, there's a bit of stuff to share.
Well, I think people, if people listening haven't heard of the Float yet, they will love this conversation to actually learn about what you're doing. But prior to that, I already know a stack of people because you're from East Gippsland. I'm from Gippsland. It's only like an hour and a half away. And those who already know what you're doing sing your praises with a lot of glory. Like they really, really love what you're doing in that space. So hopefully this will be, affirmation for them again, reaffirming what you do, but also for those new to what you do. Learning a lot about what you're doing up there. Before we get into that, you just said 23 years and you came to East Gippsland in, I think it was 2001, to marry an artist. And let me get your title right. When you came up, you were the Fairfax Business Review Weekly online national manager. Now that's a far cry from where you are now, and not that one's more or less important than the other. It's very, very different ends of the spectrum. Tell us about why you moved here. I know it was to marry an artist, but why the big change other than love?
It was purely to marry the artist, I have to say. I'd never heard of Gippsland. I think I'd only known Gary for, I don't know, 6 weeks or something. And the time was right to move to East Gippsland. But yeah, look, I grew up in Coburg, born and raised in Coburg. I've said it a lot lately. I don't really know why, but the daughter of a briquette man, I guess in some ways it just kind of explains a little bit about a fairly humble kind of beginning. Went to Coburg East Primary School, went to Coburg High, then went to Melbourne Uni, and then didn't learn very much, I have to say. I got my qualifications in economics, which has proven to be very useful in my old age to say that I have an economics degree. But at the time, I didn't love it, and I just went through the motions. After that, I worked at the control tower at Melbourne Airport, so I had a ball there. Yeah. Really young, I suppose I was probably only 23 or something, and I was running the whole show, and there were great people there. And in recent years, I've taken to mentioning that just because I like people to know I'm not just an artist who's never worked in the real world, public service in serious jobs. And I really did love it there. And from there, I went to Fairfax. So after I'd had my children, I went back as the photocopy assistant to Ross Greenwood at Business Review Weekly. And it was just a perfect time in life to be re-engaging in the workforce and studying the internet. So that was, Ross sent me back to RMIT, which was up the corner, and studied librarianship. And I could choose between a traditional librarianship or this newfangled internet world. And luckily I took the internet because nobody else knew what it was. So yeah, it was a really great time to be working in publishing, producing magazines, and really, I had the key to the whole world, really. All the passwords of the online world came through me. And so Business Review Weekly, Stock Exchange Journal,
Yeah.
Financial Review, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was a great career as well. But yeah, when I had the opportunity to move to the East, it was great because I could telecommute. So yeah, I was probably one of the first people to try to telecommute from Nowa in the Far East, where I had to do it all on dial-up. So yeah, that was kind of fun too. But yeah, the world's changed a bit since then, and everybody knows how to use the internet and everything now. So I don't have such the rare skills that I had back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a new world, and it was very exciting, and it really paid to be just a kind of adaptable, hardworking kind of person that when things went wrong, when the internet went down, you could solve things and, get all the help you needed. So yeah, it was a good grounding in, again, a business world that has proven also to be valuable in what I do now. So yeah.
Absolutely. We went 6 weeks, and then I'm just going to sail halfway across Victoria with some guy I've known for 6 weeks. It must have been a very strong attraction to sort of dump yourself in the middle of the bush after everything else that you'd been. It's a far cry from Coburg, or even from the city and the airport. Very different.
Yeah, look, obviously, love makes you do some silly things, but it proved we're still going strong. We're still married 23 years later, and all the stuff that I'm about to talk about has been because I moved here to marry an artist, and that's really what opened my eyes to the value of people that don't necessarily get recognised by the system.
Yeah.
That the arts have been neglected, and that people with such capacity to build and to make things and to do things and problem solve, we're just not valuing them enough. So as a team, he and I are quite good. I'm happy to write stuff and write grant applications and those kind of things, do the social media because I like probably talking online more than presenting, and Gary just steers clear of it. He'd rather go out and build a gallery, so it's a nice thing. But yeah, moving to East Gippsland was certainly different, and I did learn a lot along the way. Now you probably know is a very small town of 200 people, and so yeah, I had to adapt, and I can see why a lot of people don't survive it. Maybe they get bored, maybe they think there's not enough out here, maybe the shopping's not good enough, maybe I did miss multicultural cuisines and things from Coburg, but I learned my place in the world out here and had skills that hadn't been seen out here before. There's a joke, of me arriving with my laptop, my magic black box, and how to talk to the world and all those things. So my son came with me, and he went to Orbost Secondary College, and he loved it there too. So that was a really lucky break, because if he hadn't been so welcomed into the school, that probably would have been a lot harder as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I actually, before I asked you about this, the briquette man, I absolutely love that. Now, and I just, as soon as you said the briquette man, I had such fond memories of getting the briquettes in those Hessian bags, and I used to go up to the milk bar up the road, and they used to have all the briquettes out on the back landing for the truck, and we used to have them under the house when we were kids, and we used to have to go out with this bucket and get the briquettes to fire. It just brings back a whole lot of lovely memories, so thanks for sharing that. I had a lovely little flash of childhood.
Yeah, look, I think that's kind of why I mention it in some ways. I do have a briquette sign somewhere in here that I've salvaged from my dad's place, but yeah, no, it was a bit of an institution back in the day. On the corner we had a yard, so yeah, Dad did the wood and the briquettes and the woodettes and all that stuff. So yeah, we grew up serving that stuff.
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it. Geez, things have changed. When you moved, you said you came to marry an artist. Were you an artist at that time?
No, not at all. In hindsight, I'd say I probably was, but I didn't have anything that was recognised as a creative skill, and I'd never done well at school in the creative space. I always went for maths and economics and those kind of things. So I guess, yeah, I don't think I enjoyed going to galleries. I don't think I ever did. But now I can look back and think that I was probably a bit of an outside of the box kind of thinker that was not daunted by the systems, so being able to fit in organisations like the Control Tower and BRW things, and always turning up in ripped and daggy jeans, and being totally myself, required a certain creative bravery, I suppose, but it certainly wasn't what I understood the arts were. So when I moved here, Gary had a gallery in Nowa, and he does sculptures and watercolours and produces work and made quite a reasonable living out of doing that.
Wow.
But what I discovered through a lot of friendships out this way and becoming part of Regional Arts Victoria, so I was involved in a few of those fairly significant projects as an admin person, not as a creative person, but I just got the hang of it. I just started to realise that this was actually what was making my world so delightful out here, was meeting those people and celebrating stories and the environment, and that only a world that I can see through the eyes of artists. So it wasn't necessarily me seeing it. It was me loving being surrounded by those people who could make me aware of it.
So what made you then, explain what the float is, and then we can talk about how you got into it, created that.
The float is a floating art studio. We were successful in applying for the Small Town Transformation Funding, which was $350,000. So it was probably, one of the biggest grants that had ever been on the horizon out here. I think there were 5 across Victoria that were awarded. So we were lucky to get one of them, and that allowed us to build what's basically a houseboat. So artists come and live on the boat and produce art however they want to produce it. So it doesn't necessarily mean they've got to paint, or they could be writing songs. They could be, we've had Harry Sadler out here working on his book about the Eastern Curlew. Harry Hook's been here singing, so it's just a little haven we've been able to make in probably one of the most gorgeous spots. There's a few gorgeous spots in East Gippsland, actually, but Lake Tyers is one of them. It's quite a pristine lake, a Ramsar listed waterway, separate from the Gippsland Lake, so that makes it a little bit more special in some ways because it doesn't cop much of the pollution or anything that might flow into the Gippsland Lakes. So it kind of became a bit of a mission in understanding how valuable that is, and me learning that, because I don't come knowing it, I come learning it, and discovering that lots of artists want to contribute to this region through their art by showing that story and coming and being as good guests as they can be here. They come, they have to live a very minimal life online. They have to kayak to float. It's not up against a jetty. You've got to paddle out there, use your compost loo, eat minimally, be a bit cold in winter, I have to say, because the solar power is only so effective. And artists come for anything between, a week or 6 weeks to come and stay here and make their art, and hopefully meet lots of locals, come to any... we used to meet every Tuesday at the tavern, the Lake Tyers Beach Tavern, which was fantastic for us. And it just meant people could come and engage with artists who stayed here. And at the same time, the artists got to meet locals who had all the knowledge. So it was a beautiful place to transfer knowledge. And that, has been going, 5 or 6 years now, I suppose. The pandemic was a little bit tricky because not everyone could stick to their plans, and often there were cancellations and things. But we have a very dedicated team of volunteers who manage it all. Josephine Jacoby is the main curator of all that, who's born and raised and many generations of living here on Lake Tyers. So having someone like that obviously validates what we do. The Briquette daughter may not have had such clout in the local community as the Jacobys, who have been fishermen and nature lovers and artists here forever. So yeah, that's
wow. So when you say 1 to 6 weeks, is it like a booking system? Do you know that how many can you accommodate at once?
one.
Oh, one person. Oh, wow. So it's like it becomes their home.
Yep.
Is anyone else in there with them in that space, or so they just have that space by themselves? Wow.
Yeah, and it's been a whole learning process, and I must say that we do expect to expand our capacity for artists in residences soon, based on how much demand there is for float and the impact that we know it provides to the region. But on float, it will occasionally we'll make an allowance for a husband to come and visit for a night or something.
Yeah.
But really, we only want one at a time, because the system just can't cope with more. We don't want rubbish down the, black water, grey water, all those kind of things. So it's very minimal. And so, there's a bit of a team that inducts them, where the people apply online. They have to propose what they're going to do. There is a small fee to register that, because the first time we were showcased on ABC News, it was Boxing Day, and Rachel Lucas had done the story, and it ran on rotation on Boxing Day. And we got 200 expressions of interest that day, So we figured we had to change people's expectations a little. So they pay a $20 fee to express their interest. But there's a constant stream. We don't promote it because we get enough interest. And most people are probably comfortable with 1 to 2 weeks, in their life, being away from family, traveling here. But Josephine loves her full. Josephine could live there, I have to tell you, and that's a red colour, because I hardly go there at all. But it's that mix of skills. So there's a bit of a panel, curatorial panel. We read the applications, decide make sure they're a good fit for coming, and then we have a young girl we've just inducted ourselves now, who's managing that process for us, and she's had to take that over and learn it. And then we have an assistant float keeper now, Isaac, who's heavenly. So he's moved to the region to be our assistant float keeper. And that's great, because he's a next generation, he's when I say next generation, 40-something, who loves the environment, is a great kayaker and resourceful kind of guy, so he can problem solve if we need it. So he actually brings the artist out from the jetty onto the boat, helps them get all their food on, shows them around, tells them all the bells and whistles and safety side of things, and then says, see you later. So then the artist is there. We're all nearby, it's not a hugely isolated space to be in. But just the process of kayaking there adds to that feeling of I'm going somewhere really special, and appreciates that. So
I was wondering about that. I was imagining people who have never kayaked before, with all their stocks, and cameras and expensive stuff, thinking, oh my God, how am I going to get out to this thing on the float? And it's not that far, is it? From the jetty to the float. It's only, from what I saw, 30 meters, 40 meters or something like that.
Not far at all. Which is ideal, because when we built the float, we actually built it at the jetty that was there. So council were great. They let us actually spend a year building the boat on the end of the jetty. So then we were able to push it away to where it's moored down the arm now. And it's not too far, but it just gives that sense of serenity. You don't feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. So that works pretty well. Yeah.
So basically it's run by volunteers, other than a couple that are paid a small amount to keep it running.
Yeah, very small. I suppose you've probably seen in the things I talk about, social enterprise is my passion. I would like to think we're working our way towards being more viable. But to operate on realistic wages that the rest of the world expects is impossible. Like we like being able to find people who are so passionate about what we do that they'll give a certain amount of time. But whenever we get a grant or are able to allocate some money to the hard work, and certainly, insurance and all those kind of things, we need to have money for. But, I reckon there's a lot of things in life where it's nice to be able to give the artist something as a gift, that they're not having to pay too much for, and feel so special because, even often with their own exhibitions, they pay to exhibit their work or whatever. Whereas actually, I think we need to flip the way we think about artists, that they get paid for producing the work. And so, we're lucky to have a team who can do that, but I hope we're moving towards something that's a little more financially viable for the longer term, for the next generation that actually do need to earn reasonable money for the work that they do.
Yeah. And artists should earn money for the work they do. I think that there's a misconception, isn't there? Because I sang for many years until my thyroid went, and it's the people that expect you to do it for nothing, but it's just a gift, so just do it for nothing. And it's like, but it's actually a skill. It's not, even art, any form of art is a skill. It's not, yes, you can say to a degree that it's a talent, you're just born with a God-given talent, but God-given talents need to be nurtured and, practiced, and the skills built, and to become better and better and better. And if you're doing that in any other job, you get rewarded for that. But for some reason, a lot of the arts is kind of like, well, it's not really a job, but it bloody is really a job. And and imagine the world without all these art forms. Like,
I guess that's my mission in life, actually, and that because I'm not an artist, and I will say I'm either an economist or an uneconomist because I don't necessarily fit with traditional economic principles, but my aim is to flip that so that the arts are recognised as a major contributor to our life, our health, our community. But somehow it keeps falling off the radar and not being paid. So this year I'm really rapt to be on the Economic Development Advisory Committee for Council here in East Gippsland. And I know that's thanks to some key people in council lobbying for the arts to be valued. So we kind of have a voice now. We can actually say this isn't just an optional extra. And you probably realise one of the projects I've been working on lately is the East Gippsland Winter Festival. And I'm rapt to be there, and everyone can understand the economic value of the East Gippsland Winter Festival. We had in Lakes Entrance 6,000 people come for the Lantern Parade this year, and I know that means probably about $1 million into the town for one night of a month-long festival, that we do as volunteers. So I guess we're in a really good place to be able to say, you want more people staying in your motels, you want more people in your restaurants, and a sense of joy in the community. You're going to have to start thinking about how to pay these people, and it's not to pay me, but kind of the next generation that.
And that was fantastic. We were there that day that everyone was setting up, and we had the dogs, and we had to get back. And so we left the town. We left Lakes Entrance at about 4:00, and we were cursing. We were like, "Oh, damn it! Why do we know about this? We should have stayed a night." But it looked fabulous. Then I saw tons of photos of it, and it looked incredible. And I agree. It could be as simple as, let's not tell people how to run their business. But even if everybody just added a little bit to it, it could be so. I'm curious about the float. What sort of feedback do you get from artists that stay there for the week or 2 weeks? What do they say to you about that space and how it changed their art or their capacity to produce?
Oh, they just love it. There's just I don't know if they'd admit if it didn't, if they didn't. But certainly every bit of feedback we've had is just overwhelming love of the experience. And Josephine Jacoby is a very special artist as well, so they do love meeting her as part of that induction process. I imagine there's some degree of discomfort. It's quite luxurious. It is a beautiful space. It's got a kitchen, it's got the workspace, the double bed, the whole thing. But, there is a degree of having to bring your own food on and be able to survive on that. So I'm sure there's some, this is a bit harder than I thought. But the love of the place and the experience and the nature that they're surrounded by, kayaking, just lowering their boat into the lake and then paddling up the arm around the corner. They can paddle down to the Lake Tyers Beach Tavern as well if they want to go the whole way. But yeah, it's just a bit like the only thing like it in the world in some ways. It's one of those really bucket list kind of experiences, I think. And I think the process does mean we get the right people, that we tell them what to expect and they come wanting to love the nature around them. So yeah, there's also some limitations on what kind of artwork they can do on board. So they can't have anything where paint has to be washed out of their brushes down the drain or anything like that. But they can work off-site and things. So everyone's pretty well accommodated.
Yeah, and the internet is connected out there as well. No,
we don't actually supply it, but everybody's phones.
Oh yeah, of course.
Which they never used to when we were building it. There was actually no coverage in that spot, but now everyone just runs off their own phone. Yeah.
Yeah, not that you want to. I'm imagining going out there with an art idea, in your mind. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to create my whatever that looks like, sculpture or painting or book or whatever. And then sitting out there in solitude, and even at night, and I'm not saying being scared, but just the sparseness, of the solitude and how much inward reflection that would generate. And I can't help but wonder if it were me, that I would go out there with one thing in mind, and all of that reflection would generate something either quite different or at least a bit different, because I've had that, been away from all distractions. Do you think that happens?
Oh, I'm sure we really should be more diligent in collecting artists' reflections. Like it's something that we haven't done that well. There's a little bit of a gallery on our website that we've managed to get photos of, a lot of the people that have stayed there. But yeah, we should ask more. But they just, they give little glowing reviews in the book and say how much they love it. And I think the great thing is that we've ended up with an alumni of people that are seeing something so unique and so different, and they recommend it to their friends and word of mouth. So I think that's really important. And I think, as you read on LinkedIn the other day, what it created was the opportunity to start this Feral MBA. And what I first called it, when I realised that artists were coming and people were gathering around and sharing knowledge, I labelled it a communiversity, because I think we're like this little epicenter of shared knowledge. And I think there's really value in that concept, because we don't have an arts department anymore. We don't have art courses at the TAFE, but we have something like a modern version of that that's not bogged down in all the management and all the KPIs and all the other things that TAFE seem to have created around themselves. It's pure artistic sharing. And that was kind of what we called the communiversity. And then someone came along with this idea for the Feral MBA, and that's what we piloted last year. And it was just this perfect little hub of thoughtfulness around the crisis that we're in with climate change and environmental issues and the bushfires that had come. And we're all having to rethink how we do business, how government expects us to do business, and who's doing the really valuable things in communities. So, you know, I would say that what we do is really valuable. But we need to convince policymakers that it is valuable, combined with social enterprise, so we can generate money. So the Feral MBA was kind of interesting because we did charge for that. We charged around $600 per person, which was kind of a nice budget for quite a compact, coherent program that could pay the people who did the work. There was still a lot of volunteer stuff involved, but the outcomes just go on, and the alumni who graduated from that Feral MBA, they're just converted, and they're really an amazing eclectic. I shouldn't say eclectic. That sounds a bit woo-woo.
I think it sounds nice. Yeah.
Okay. You know, so they're people, they're managers, they're bakers, they're artists, they're philosophers, or not even philosophers, they're accountants, they're all sorts of people who are looking for a different economy. And that's what's been so valuable for me to say, that's why I didn't enjoy economics back in the 70s at Melbourne Uni, because this is what economics is more about, and actually providing answers to all the dilemmas that we face. So, we've just relaunched the Feral MBA for next year. So that's kind of exciting that it's getting that traction of financial sustainability to be able to keep offering it and to be that destination that we want East Gippsland to be. This is where you come to meet cool people talking about cool things, doing cool things. It's really changing its stripes, I think.
And real things, like not just bureaucracy at its best. You know, it's actually addressing real issues and coming up with real solutions for real people, and not just imaginary people. I'm probably just going to go banging on about politicians, but the people that are on their books or on their papers are not real. It's not a real life, you know. So what you're doing, what you're offering, is bloody fantastic. So the next one starts in February next year. And is it still a $600 fee for that?
It's actually $775. We wanted to pay all the staff this year. Last year I did it as a volunteer. But I had some extra funding from Regional Arts Victoria. They have actually funded us for 3 years with our business plan around arts residencies. So I didn't need to be paid out of those fees. But I guess this year we're moving more towards total covering of costs, mixed in with a little bit of generosity, because even last year, and we'll do it this year, some people offered accommodation or studio spaces that they could make available. So we still rely on that. You know, I think there's still a place for goodwill and loving sponsors in the community. But getting a little bit more realistic.
No, and I think that's fair. I think $775 for a program like that is bloody cheap, to be honest. And why shouldn't those investing their time be paid? Why shouldn't they? You know, I think that's fantastic. How long does it go for?
It's actually 5 weeks. But you only come here for the first weekend and the last weekend. So, and some people live locally, so we can still meet and talk. And I'm expecting Float will run a program in the middle of it. So that's what we did last year as well. We had a regenerative tourism workshop with Diane Dredge, who I think of as the kind of world guru of regenerative tourism. I'm just such a big fan. So she'll probably come and do a few things in between time. But what we discovered is you really only need to commit to the first and last weekends. Everything else gets done through group sessions, either online or in meeting face-to-face in different places. And then Kate Rich, who is the convener of all of this, she does her one-on-one mentoring. And I just can't believe how good the feedback was. It still blows my mind how much everyone got out of it. And I will say there was a local woman who sponsored 3 of those positions last year, and I won't name her just because I didn't check that I should, but that gave us such a kickstart to have that belief that as soon as she read the blurb, she knew she wanted to make sure that locals who couldn't normally afford it were there in person, and they were. We had 3 great people come from the local region, and they made such a difference, because for people who came from around the rest of Australia, met locals who were so articulate around regenerative economics, around sustainability, around environment. So it really, it was a great celebration of all the things I think about East Gippsland.
I love that. Well, where can people find information about that? Because I'm sure there's people listening going, oh, that sounds fantastic. Like where would you find that information and a blurb or something like that?
Yeah, so I have put it up on the Float website now, so float3909.com. It's under the tab of Feral MBA, and it is there. And it's a fairly simple description, but it worked last year with no history. And this year we've got all these kind of rave reviews. And I will say we are only going to have 20 people, and I imagine it will be quite competitively applied for this year because of the word of mouth around it. But that's just good for us, because I think gives us the confidence to pursue this future for the region, and the more the better, I say.
I think that's bloody fantastic. You've got a lot of I don't want to miss out on all the other F words that you've got going on up there, and I'll let me read them out. And art trails dotted with wild and backyard fruit, so that's called F Fruit. A thriving maker collective in Bairnsdale called Foundry. An annual breakfast for 200 folk full of Johnsonville peaches, which sounds bloody delicious. Fruitville. An artist-made travel bureau at Docklands called Fruitland, a floating art studio, which is Afloat. We talked about that. Next up, you're talking about Float Air, which is a trail of arts residencies in underused spaces. Tell us about that. Well, I mean, they're all interesting. Tell us about whatever you want, but, what's this?
Well, the first ones you mentioned really kind of explain the history of where we are. So fruit was one of our first projects, because girl from Coburg discovered that everyone had fruit trees and knew how to make great bottled fruit out of it. So that became an artwork of socially engaged art, I discovered. And meeting an artist from Mona who told me that was what we were doing made such a difference to our status in the art world, that people could understand the importance of it. So that was the whole journey of Fruitville. It was an event that ran for 9 years. Stalled because of the pandemic. We had to stop. I reckon it'll probably come back again, because it was such a great event built on that. So the other interesting one I'll just touch on was Fruitland at Docklands. So I became very interested in Marcus Westbury's model of Renew Newcastle, which a lot of people had heard about, because he and his team turned a dying steel town into the Lonely Planet #1 creative destination by embedding artists in empty shops. That was model there. And then he came and did the similar thing at Docklands. So we were able to get a space at Docklands, and we delivered what we called at the time was artist-led travel bureau. It was never financially successful, but it was the most amazing exploration of being able to show people in person what we were doing in East Gippsland. So, and just the network that you become part of when you do those stupid things, and dedicate a year to basing yourself in Docklands at the city. And those relationships just go on and on and on, So I feel like we're part of an amazing network of people who get what we're doing. But the Float Air is really important. That's what we got the 3 years of funding from Regional Arts Victoria for, because we pitched to East Gippsland Shire Council that artists in residence have a genuine economic impact. So I did present several times to the Economic Development Advisory Board back then that it was important, and would they help fund a residency network.
Yeah.
Eventually they did. I had to pitch 3 times, but eventually I got it, and someone wrote the business plan that said, yep, if you have 10 artists here for so many weeks, you'll inject, so many $100,000 into the economy.
Yeah.
That was the business plan that I attached to the Regional Arts Victoria grant application, which then got us 3 years of funding to try to get from there to here.
Yeah.
When I say 3 years, kind of modest, like 40,000 a year, not huge full-time wages for everyone, but certainly enough to have enough money to pay for the things we needed to do to do that. So since we got that, that's what we've been working on. How do we actually create a brand? How do we say we've got a destination? What's our there's a word for it. I can't think what it is. No, it's gone. Kind of just producing those documents that councils and funding bodies need to see that we've got a legitimate business plan. So that's what we've been working on, and we've just appointed Andrew Keast, who a lot of people know because he's part of the Wayfarer cooperative business, which a lot of us love because it's a bit of an alternative to Airbnb, where profits are reinvested back into local communities. So we were always on the same wavelength from that point of view. But what he brought were the skills that I don't have, which is doing the business plan, doing the contracts, reading the insurance documentation to make sure that we could offer spaces right across East Gippsland, far East Gippsland, I suppose, that utilised underused places that I know people are willing to offer us because they've seen us do this for the last 15 years. They know what we're trying to do. They trust us. And all we need is to kind of package up the offering, the message, and a legal document that says, yes, you can stay there for 2 weeks at X amount of dollars. So we're kind of on the verge of just putting that into shape. I'm sure we'll announce it by the end of this year and have call for applications, and we'll always be looking for people who have spaces that would fit the bill. And I know just in my own network of friends, there are people who have houses that are empty some of the time, or fishing cabins on an island, over in Lakes Entrance that I know we could use if they offered it to us for a couple of weeks. And we can kind of turn that into either a gift to the artist who uses it or an income stream for our operation. So that's kind of what we're working out now. So, yeah.
Wow. I love that. And will people be able to, say if there's an unused shop, or shop front or that sort of stuff, are you hoping that people will sort of off the street wander in and observe the artist, or you haven't thought that far ahead? Because that'd be quite interesting.
Yeah, look, we haven't targeted shops because I've always felt that Renew Newcastle was in a unique position to do that, with a team of contemporary curating artists drawing on an arts community that had a university in it. So what they were able to do was kind of offer something to recently graduated artists, full of excitement. And I just don't think we have that here yet. So I've been more interested in offering space like Float for artists to come and make their work, and then perhaps have exhibitions or run workshops or other things. But keeping a shop open seemed a bit of a tall order for what can be a bit of a sleepy town historically. So yeah, but hopefully we'll get to that point.
Yeah, well, you never know, do you? And Newcastle, I love that story. I saw a picture of it the other day from an aerial shot, and how much greenery they've got there now, and I think I read, and I don't hold me to this. I think I read that there wasn't one tree in the place, and now they've got these beautiful green spaces all through the city. I know it's not exactly the same as what you're talking about, but kudos to a town that is actually going, let's do things different. Let's not sit here and wait for someone else to call us a desolate town that does nothing. Let's actually do something else, which is what you're doing. Different, but it's still that same. What have we got here that we can run ourselves, and take some initiative on, instead of waiting for someone else to say, give us permission?
I think that's it exactly. And I like to say that we're not whingers, we're not sitting back saying, someone solve our problem. We've always found our own solutions. And like you say, I think every solution needs to be unique to that place. So Newcastle fitted exactly what they had to offer. I hope in Lakes Entrance, it's a beautiful town built on a fishing industry. So, I love to honour those traditional skills and the history of those. The boats are beautiful, but, it's from well, not completely a gone era, but we've got to work together with the traditional industries to add a bit of the spark that makes the place that it is. So I think that's what artists do so well, and that to me is what creates a destination. If you don't have artists there, I don't see it much of a destination. So
I love all this. You've also got Regen Gippsland. Tell us about that. You've got so many projects going. I don't know how you bloody keep up with them all, but anyway, it's fantastic.
It was part of the conversation this morning. It was really saying, I've been told I'm a systems thinker. That this was the big revelation to me now. I actually understand what that means. And it's true, and it's not that I have to be across every detail of every idea that I put out there. I can put out a bubble and say, well, here we all are. We can help you if you have an idea. And as long as it's aligned with our philosophy of generosity and kindness and social justice and all those kind of things, then we're here to support those ideas. And about 15 years ago, I suppose, Creative Victoria said to me, Andrea, you're not going to be able to keep getting funding for every idea you have. You've got to explore this social enterprise. So that's what we did. And we went to the social traders and we did the Crunch program and learned the principles of social enterprise. And I've been on that boat ever since. That not hugely successfully, like I'm not a very money-driven person. So I do find it a little hard to be hard-asked about the social enterprise. But what I was rapt about was when that seemed to evolve into regenerative economics. And suddenly I've been surrounded by people who think just like me and really driven by social enterprise, but embrace the creative industries, highly value the environmental issues, and all those other things that I've just mentioned. So I went to the Clean Energy Conference in Sale last year. You might have been there too. And I got a bit concerned that I wasn't hearing much about East Gippsland, and it was a narrow subject of just the energy side of things. And I think if we don't change the way we all live and relate to each other, then we're not making progress. So that same day that I came home from the energy conference, someone sent me the Regen Gippsland idea. And we've been on that boat ever since, just saying, here's a broader picture of what we all seem to bring a different skill to and a different network, but they're also aligned, that we're all very happy in thinking it's a really good positive solution to what the world needs right now.
Well, you're talking to the converted. I think that's absolutely beautiful. I think there's so basically, let me just understand. It's just it is putting ideas together to find solutions to regenerate Gippsland, but include making sure that it's not specifically, but it includes the holistic picture, like the environment and the people and all of that. Have I got that right?
Yeah, look, I think that's exactly right. And there are different models of this emerging all over the world, and we're following a little bit what Regen Melbourne, who are a bit at the forefront of describing this in policy terms and winning over governments and things. So we're quite new for Regen Gippsland, but we are right across Gippsland. So we go from, I'll be down in Dunbrook next week, to Malakuta. We're all wanting to connect, but knowing that we all have slightly different strengths. So down in the valley, it might be that energy is the focus, and that's the industry that needs most creative thinking around that. Timber industries are obviously a big issue out here, and how can we be more creative in finding the kind of industries that do embrace the knowledge that the timber sector has, but maybe it's in tourism, maybe it's in trail development or something creative. So out here in East Gippsland, regen tourism is my thing. So we're about to have 3 forums across the region, and our one is on September 11 here at Lakes Entrance at Iceworks, which is the art space that my husband and I built and provide to the community.
What's it called? Iceworks. Iceworks, fantastic. I'm going to look that up.
An old Iceworks factory, so it was a fishing Iceworks. And we bought it a few years ago, and we make it available as an art space for the community. So that's where our regen, a bit like, all the butter factories and things that are around, they're just such golden opportunities to be creative hubs that don't price themselves out of use by the community. It does concern me when people want commercial rents and a booking system that precludes spontaneous exhibitions and all those kind of things. So that's kind of what we do in Lakes Entrance.
Well, I wish I had known about that last week, because I was in Lakes Entrance for 3 days, 3 nights, working on my book and working on my own work, and I locked myself in a room for 3 days. But had I known that, I would have popped in and visit you. So I thought you were out at Lake Tyers, and anyway, it doesn't matter. But I think it sounds absolutely bloody fantastic. You've got, like you're saying, energy in Latrobe, and then tourism in, Lakes Entrance End, and different priorities, in different areas that suits more their area. How are you going to decide what gets the, who gets priority at what stage, and how are you going to run that, or you don't know yet until it comes up?
Yeah, look, I don't think we have to prioritise things, and I suppose that's been how I've worked for as long as I've been here. You put an idea out, and the energy gathers around the one that's ripe for development. And I'm really lucky, because the rest of the Regen team are so nice to me. They always say, what you're doing up in East Gippsland is fantastic. That's kind of leading the way, because we, as you said, we actually have stuff that's visible on the ground doing things. We're not just talking about it. We're not just philosophizing. We're actually making those things happen. And I think we're at the front of the pack a bit in that way. But the others are not far behind. They're working on their plans, gathering their teams. There's a lot of different projects. The more we talk, the more we see how connected we already are, but nobody's pulled us all together until now. So I think just that extra momentum of knowing that you're not alone. If you launch this, we'll come and be part of it, those kind of things. So I think that's really gathering momentum.
Yeah, I get it now. So it's all little different subgroups and that are all doing their thing to regenerate Gippsland, and then we're trying to come together. Do you know what I love that you said? That the energy gathers where it's ripe. That is so, like, that is profound. And I know it's probably just words, but it's there's so many times that things are going on and should I do this or that? And when I talked about prioritizing, you know, like we all do it in our own lives. What should I prioritize? You know, what, oh God, I've got 3 things. I don't know what to start on and all that. What you just said about the energy gathering where it's ripe. Wow. Wow. I don't know if that's going to impact anyone else, but for me, that just hit a chord. That's beautiful. Anyway, just thought I'd tell you that.
I think it takes patience, and I think it does take a very long view. So, you know, it's not about benefiting me personally. It's not about it being realized in my time. You know, it's just saying we need to head towards these outcomes and we'll do our bit along the way. So, you know, we've started an on-foot program recently. It was part of the Winter Festival. I love to walk. You know, I'm not a huge nature nerd, but I love being out in it, but I don't recognize different things. The first Winter Festival, I had 2 on-foot events, you know, and they were quite small, and we were lucky Skipper Pete led them and did a guided tour of it. This Winter Festival, Helenka King did the same thing up in Swifts Creek. She had 3 on-foot walks. Yeah. And they're all sold out, you know. So I guess what we're happy doing is something that we can be incremental about it. We can experiment with it, do a small booking fee, and then take more photos, share more stories, and then people want to come back and do it the next year. So just really not being impatient, just knowing that the right people will come and do the things that are good for all of us. And so this year we also had some great walks in Orbost, in Can River. Just met with the girl today who's going to do, you know, the Far East as well. So, and they're young, and they're bringing their young children with them. Yeah. And what I loved on the weekend was that Clara brought her son Bo along with his garbage bag. He chose to bring the garbage bag with him, and he collected rubbish. Oh. And it's just like, well, of course, you know, we all have to bring our bags when we do these walks, you know. Yeah. And for me, that's how everything kind of evolves, that being open to other people's ideas. Yeah.
And it's very organic, which lends itself very well to the ripening conversation. But I love that bit about taking your time and letting it evolve, and you may never see it. And that's one of my philosophies, is that, you know, I'm always going to plant the tree of the shade that I'll never get to sit under, you know. And I think that's what's needed, you know, for this planet to survive, and it's what's needed for future generations. And we can say, well, doesn't worry me, I'll be dead by then. But you know what, that's we're not solo isolated beings, you know, on this planet. We're all interconnected, you know, we're all together. And if we don't take care of each other, you know, and take care of what we can't yet see, we're not going to have any hope, you know. And it's such an important thing. So everything you're saying is just you're just making all these little sparkles in my heart. It's absolutely beautiful. I love you to bits. I just love what you're about. I love what you're doing, and I don't know. I know people listening to this will be like, oh my God, there's good people in the world. This is so nice. So thank you. Now, when people want to just find out more, you mentioned the website, which is and I also I wrote this down, so I want to say this. I love you mentioned in there about generosity, kindness, and social justice, social enterprise, that kind of stuff. And they're just such powerful keywords. I love it. Now back to what I was saying. You've got the website float 309.
3909. So it's the postcode.
Oh, shit. Sorry. Yep. Float 3909, which is the Lakes Entrance postcode.com. So I'll say it again because I just kept screwing that up. Float3909.com is the website. Do you have an Instagram and Facebook as well, so people can start following you? Yeah.
They're all similar to that. Yeah.
Float 399.
Stop might be in a different spot in some of them, but yeah, Instagram and Facebook are all roughly Float 3909. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's fantastic. Well, I hope people do go and check it out and start following you and start I don't know, giving their energy to you in whatever way is the most beneficial to, you know, to join forces with you and that sort of stuff. And as you and I would agree, people don't have to come to you, exactly as in person, but just start adopting some of these philosophies and just start making a better world, and that energy spreads to build everybody. It's beautiful.
Yep. I think so too.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. I've absolutely loved this conversation. And see, it wasn't as bad as you thought it would be, was it?
I think I waffled on too much, but anyway, sorry.
You did.
A little bit, but
no, you didn't. No, you didn't at all. I think sometimes when we say the same thing over, when we tell our story over, we kind of think, oh God, I've heard this a million times. But myself and my listeners haven't heard all this a million times, and what you've shared is absolutely key and brilliant. So I'm so grateful for you coming on and sharing all that with us.
And I really hope that people think about living in regions like this. I think it's really easy to imagine that coming out here is boring, but I have to say I have the best life.
Yeah.
And I kind of make that life, so I just really encourage anyone to think about all the things we've talked about, because it's important.
Yeah. There's a huge richness in rural areas it's not about money. It's not about, as you said, multicultural cafes, which are beautiful, but it's not the end of the world. And the richness in appreciating the things that are things and the people that are around you that deeply are, what can I say, nature's already perfect, but people who care about that sort of stuff, it's quite a richness to be surrounded by that. So,
and you can kind of live more simply. I suppose that's what I discovered. I didn't need the corporate wage, because I just didn't have to go shopping all the time, and that we could walk and do, frugal kind of things and share food and conversation. And you get off that treadmill of, I really would like to rescue anyone from a 9-to-5 job towards their end of life, enjoy it more and give back more.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the key. Well, thank you very, very much for joining us. I absolutely loved it. And I will get up there. I know I will, and I can't wait. So thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. See ya.